Welcome to the Hammond Built channel. Today on the E36, we are going to depower the power steering rack purely because we are going electric power steering because, well, as you can see by how leaky the factory BMW power steering unit becomes over time. We are going to disassemble it, cut out the piston that is somewhere right about here, probably more right here because of the lines. Cut the piston off of it to allow it to move back and forth without any force. We will be taking these two lines, capping them completely, maybe weld them shut, maybe just weld the nut shut so that nothing can get in there. We will be taking the power unit head here, which is where it comes off your power steering pump, into here, giving you that hydraulic steering ability. We'll be taking those two nuts off, more than likely just cutting the banjo nuts short, welding the edge shut, bolting them back on, as unlike Honda racks that I've done in before, this piece does not actually come off of the steering rack. Deleting this whole mess because it is god-awful and unnecessary. So, the reason for deleting the power steering out of this unit is we're going full electric power steering, EPS. Take all the load off the engine. It was a free unit that I've gotten out of another vehicle, so why not? The factory column is going to be pulled out soon. We are going to make mounts to mount said unit underneath the dash of the E36. We are going to build a new column piece here with double D joints and Borgeson end pieces, or unit joints. I'm gonna disassemble the outside of this down to a bare rack. Off video, don't really have anything to hold this currently. And then I will take it to work, clean it up. I don't have a Varsol tank. And then I will continue the video probably tomorrow afternoon. It'll be the same video for you guys of opening this rack, cutting the piston out, putting it back together, probably ordering new seals for either end so grease doesn't get in, new seals for up here. Like I said, welding up all the pieces because we don't want dirt getting inside our rack, ruining it. The rack has zero play in it to begin with, which is very nice for a 500,000 kilometer power steering rack. Okay, so I've gotten the rack down to bare bones, nice and clean, or not really clean, but nice and disassembled, so that we can start our next task of actually cleaning it. So just for reference though, anybody who's following this, these two are 12 mil. This is a push-in air line to go between the two. 12 mil, 12 mil. They're the following lines. Top one that goes to the pump is a 19 mil. Lower one that goes to the, I believe it is the return line to the reservoir there. That is a 22 mil. Your tie rods on either end down there. Big old 32 mil wrench will get there, or 1.25 inches for my American friends. Next part of this video will probably be in a day, but it'll be on the same video for you guys like I said earlier. But I'm going to Varsol clean this entire rack, get it nice and not yuck so that I can disassemble it and essentially depower it. Okay, so we're back on the E36 steering rack from the other day. I know it's the same video. Varsol really helps to clean it up. There are 3 versions of this rack that you can get. I believe only 3, maybe 4. The silver, the gold, and the purple. Purple and gold are better ones than this, but this will do for what I'm doing. First part of this is getting the snap ring out from the end. And what you'll need is a flathead screwdriver or a pick. And what you're going to do is get down in right here through the vent hole, and you're going to push it off and then walk it out around here. This edge is not nearly as is not a machine surface that something rides on, so you have to worry about. If you nick it, just sand it down with some thin Scotch-Brite. It'll really help. From here on out, we need to pull the main drive out of the rack, which will be a couple pieces here. I believe a snap ring and the nut on the bottom. We need to take out the tension spring, which that's how tight it is here. If you have a very loose rack, turning this ever so slightly will help to tighten up your rack. Sometimes it can't be fixed and you need to replace your rack. So what we'll need is a 17 mil and a 21 mil. So we'll crack this thing loose. Be careful not to lose any of the parts in there. We have the cap, we have a spring, there's a O-ring right there, and we will need a set of pliers. Oh. Pull out our O-ring, pull out our seal, or actually I'm not sure what they call this, but it creates the pressure. It's got a wear item. This is why your racks get loose over time. Another seal on there. It goes over here. Pair of snap ring pliers. Mine aren't the greatest. See how well this goes. Okay, after a little bit of struggling, snap ring is out. Nice easy piece. Now bottom nut, I pre-loosen just to make it a little bit quicker. 21 mil. Now we have another 17, which will shoot all the liquid that's inside of your rack out. There we go, all the way to the one side. Now we can loosen it off while dripping more fluid everywhere. There we go. Now we need to knock that top out of it. Chisel screwdriver that I use and a mallet. We have our top seal off of it. Then essentially, quick little twist, it'll come off of the rack itself. this is your piece. We're going to remove all these seals. We no longer need them. And if we're lucky, this piece actually comes off because we can just delete it completely. Make sure your bearings still look good. Replace if needed. Sometimes they are needed to be replaced, sometimes they're not. Now we have our rack, which I'm going to reposition the camera. Now we have an almost empty rack. We will come back to this side here, give it a yank, and pull out the rack itself. We now have an empty casing. Put this to the side. We have one of the end seals. This one was held in by that circle clip. And then we have our middle seal, which, if it's like the Honda racks, we should be able to cut this off, which I'll just do off camera. Clean this up, put some grease on here, check out that seal, make sure there's no issues with it. Check out your rack, make sure there's no bad threads on either end, clean them out if necessary, and then we'll start reassembly. Okay, back after some cleaning. So we have our main part of the rack, which pushes your tie rods. We have cut off the piston. Be careful, it is hardened steel. It is a pain in the ass to get out. If you don't want to completely remove it, you can just take the seals off of it and leave in one piece if you ever decide to go back to powered steering. But since we are going non-power steering and I don't ever plan on going back, we just remove the piston. That can go in the garbage. So we'll put this to the side for a second. Down here. We have cleaned off our piece, or I want to call it a drive head. I'm not sure the proper name. I believe there's a way to take it off. It looks like it's got to pound this out or something. I just don't have all the tools here to deal with it. All my bearings are good. Going to remove these real quick. They are nylon seals, I want to say. They are quite hard. They're hard to get out. I'm going to have to cut them more than likely. So I'll be right back with that. I should have done it first, but we will knock those out. And then we will get back to putting that rack back together. Okay, so we have this. We are going to, I already did the first one, make sure the knife actually cuts it. Just slit it nicely. Peel out your seal. On to the next one. Peel out your seal. And just continue like that. There we go. And then underneath is a O-ring. Oh, sorry. Pull those off. This same process, say if you're you didn't want to depower it, you could follow along with this, replace all these seals, not cut that piston off, and you could actually reseal your E36, E46 power steering rack. A lot of them need it. A lot of the seals are real old. Wildly enough, I went through all my stuff over the last couple days. I actually resealed this about 5 years ago. Hard to believe how grimy, but all my seals are actually in pretty great condition. So we have all this. We have our rack all cleaned out for the most part. Nothing major left in it. Some little grease, but the grease is good. There is a seal way down right there. If you are keeping the power steering, using this as a disassembly reassembly video, you're going to want to knock that out and replace it. Mine is, like I said, only a few years old. It helps to keep your fluid on the one side instead of finding its way in here and blowing out. Mine didn't have any leaks on either end, again, because I have already replaced all these seals. If you are leaking fluid out of these ends, especially this side, but this end, you need to replace that O-ring. if you're leaking fluid from this side, you need to replace that seal right there. I believe there was another one that was on here. I might not, but you need to replace that one if you're leaking power steering fluid that way, or it could be coming through here, which is all the seals we just took off there. I would replace those if you're leaking fluid, which you still have to disassemble the whole rack in one big go. As you can see, a little bit of a pain in the ass. To continue with that, this is the seal. So on the passenger side, if you are leaking power steering fluid out, this is the seal on that circlip head that you need to replace. If you're leaking, we won't be using power steering fluid. Mine, as you can see, great condition. We won't be replacing it. Same with these, all great condition. No point in replacing them on mine. As I said, I've already done them. So we will just start reassembling this. I'm gonna collect up my grease, put this back together. I got a baggie of all my welded up bungs for these, and we'll get to that. Okay, I prefer super lube. You can use whatever you feel like. Super lube is just my go-to for all my seal, all my lubrication stuff. It's good. So with this, don't really need those anymore. They're just clean. Welded up the banjo bolts that were in the side. Welded, painted black just to stop the metal from rusting. We have all the fittings here. They will all go like so. Like so. Sorry about hearing my dog lose his mind in the background. There is apparently a dog outside. Take these, tighten them down. Since we're not sealing to seal oil, they just need to be tight. There doesn't even need to be anything on them, as you no longer have fluid. If you are using this for, like I said, to rebuild a rack, there is a O-ring seal on the end of all the pipes that go on here. I would replace those since you're in there. Or check if your pipes are cracked or leaking. Some of these E36s are, what are we, 292 they came out, so they're about 25, 30 years old at this point, 32 years old at this point. I would replace them. Really should have taken these and cleaned them up too, but that's my bad. That's our big one on here. Like I said, they're not needed. Just putting them back just to keep a look, I guess. Again, if you're using these as a reseal video, replace your crush washers. They're known to leak. Using each other to help brace it, tightening it down. Everything's sealed, nothing will get back into here, which is a huge positive. Take our main rack and pinion, or main part of the rack here. The teeth will go face down when you go in. Take our super lube, put a little across the teeth. Don't need much, honestly. Over the years, I've packed them crazy, put very little. As long as it's enough to get in the teeth, it'll stay there and go back and forth with the main drive. Don't have to worry about anything. At this point, you can put your rack back in. Honestly, doesn't matter which way you go from. It will not change how you install it. Make sure your teeth are face down. You see on the back side that is clear like that. Take our, like I said, main drive. Not really sure what to call it, but it seems like the right name. Add a little bit more super lube on there. Spread it around a little bit. Add a little bit to these bearings here, because these used to be, I believe they used to see oil. I could be wrong, but a little bit of grease never hurt them, especially this stuff. So what we're gonna do, we'll take that, flip ourselves this way, and falls in. Now it's moves back and forth. You can hear how sloppy it is. That is because that push ring, I honestly no idea what to call it, is not in there yet. And because we don't have the nut on the bottom. So add a little grease in there like it used to have. Put our nut on the bottom. Nut on the bottom there. Now we're going to tighten this. I'm going to use the rack itself as a way to force it in. Basically sat down for now, so we're here. Take this. Again, a little bit of lube. Just ensures that it stays easy to slide. Force that down. Put your O-ring in. Replace if necessary. Mine's still in great condition. Spring next. Now there is a technique to this one, and I know when they are factory in your car, if you give them a tighten, you can gradually get them nice and tight. As you can see, I can still move that by hand. There is a point to where it's too tight and you're fighting it to turn, and there's a point where it's too loose and it's not good. Right now I'm just getting it tight enough. I can spin it by hand. There's no play. That's what we want out of it. Go back. It'll take it all the way to that side. Give it a good crank down. Top nut for that. Probably get more sockets out for this, but nice and tight, good enough for what it is. Not to drop that. As you can see, spins nice and easy. We're still a little play because we're missing an end part. And then we take this. Again, there's bearings. I believe these were probably oil fed because of where they were initially. We're gonna add a little grease just so they stay Nice and lubricated on the inside. They don't burn up, especially say you're going drifting or something. A lot of back and forths. Good way to burn them up. Take a whacking hammer. Circle clip in, goes in a lot easier than they come out, oddly enough. Now we're done there. We go to this side. Like I said, replace any seals that are bad. Sorry if that was out of camera. Replace any seals that are bad. Slides over. Grab your whacking hammer. Make sure it's seated down there nice and tight, which it does not look to be just yet. Try not to score anything, especially if you're rebuilding this for the power steering. Couple good whacks, seated right down. You'll know you're seated when you can look through that little hole and see it's back there, or obviously from this edge, and you can see where that clip ring goes. This is going to be a fun time, more than likely. Because these can be a nightmare to get in on a good day. Seems like it's going better than expected. Seated all the way down in there. You can kind of see it in that hole. That's where you pull it from. Now we have our vent tube. Mine was, again, good condition. Got a little dirty here, but good condition. Goes like that. Probably didn't help that it was frozen all night. Slides in there. This is probably not as necessary, but what it does is when you have your boot on either side, as you go, there's air that moves, and this helps to push the air from one side to the other, so you don't get a buildup of air and pop out your tie rod boots. So that is our depowered power steering rack. Nice and ready to go. I will adjust this more once in the car and we know how loose it is. Make sure you center up your rack when you install it. Best way to go is from the face in there to the outside of here. The face in there, outside of here. They should be the same, both sides. Your rack is centered to install. Now, to go a little bit more from that, we have the power steering unit, which hopefully next video, maybe the one after, I'm not sure yet. We're gonna get into pulling this the column to install that and all the stuff that is currently in the way there to get it mounted under the dash. So this is the end of this build. As I said, you can use this to rebuild your power steering rack. It's basically the same thing other than cutting off all the seals that you don't need. But this is the non-power steering. This is a depowered power steering rack for an E36. Very similar technique to do it for the E46. And tune in next time for hopefully that.